Okay.
So obviously people know who you are, Justin Hawkins, former Aggie player. You helped Jack out on the radio the last couple seasons, but it sounds like you moved out of Las Cruces finally. Is that a good thing? And what are you up to now?
Man, Las Cruces is always home. It'll always be home. Uh, man, my family, we left Cruces because I became a missionary. Um, yeah, I still work with basketball and do basketball stuff. But yeah, I'm a full-time missionary now with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Uh, so I kind of do the same stuff. But I just, with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I'm just able to share more of myself and, how I got, to the places that I was able to go.
That's great, man. Congratulations. I honestly did not know that. I follow you a lot, like on Facebook and stuff like that. Like I know that you've always been helping kids develop their game and whatnot. What helped you? What led you down that path? Obviously, your faith did, but I mean, how'd that happen?
That's really it. Honestly, once I retired, and I always kind of was working with people. I always shared whatever knowledge that I had when I was when I first started playing professionally, whether it was with the guys that were at New Mexico State, at that time, and the kids that were in the area. But once I, retired and I started working with, players full time, I just realized that there's another side to, the sport, and that's, my spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
That's played a huge part in my life. I never spoke about it a whole lot in the past. That's just because I wasn't really living in it all the way. But once I retired and I started working with the kids, and I seen how a lot of them struggle, individually, in their home. The home situation is not always the best, especially with a lot of the kids I, run into. I seen that, and I felt like there was more that I could give, and just spending time with them, began to pray for the kids, and I just feel like God just placed on my heart that, this is what I want you to do full time. But like I said, I've been blessed to still be able to be in the gym and coach and train and do a bunch of other different things.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear that you're doing good, man. I'm happy to hear that. The reason I wanted to speak with you, though, like I told you earlier, was, and it's kind of good timing because Chris Jans just added another Division I transfer this past week. I think he has, 3 or 4 of them on the upcoming roster. He's done a good job identifying those players. And I wanted to talk to you about your transfer path too. But like, what do you make of, the current situation of, it seems like college athletes have a lot more empowerment in how their careers plays out now than maybe when you played?
Man, I think this is amazing for the player. And I think that the schools will benefit from it as well too. But being a former player, I'm pro player all the time. Even with, the kids that I work with now, I think it starts there. I think they, parents and the child have to realize that, this is their career, and they, have more power now than in the past to, be able to make choices for themselves that are going to benefit them. And it won't just be the school or the organization that they may be playing AAU basketball for, whatever. They're not in total control. But as far as with, kids and nowadays with the way that it is, them being able to go transfer putting their name in the portal. I think that's amazing. Honestly, I might not have been at New Mexico State if I had access to this when I was transferring.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about your specific team here, because it's different. Elijah was already here. You tell me if I'm wrong with all this stuff. Elijah was already here, but Reggie had you from Utah, Fred Pete from Kansas State, Martin from Charlotte, I think it was, and Trey from Northern Colorado. Obviously, Hatchula was the JUCO guy. Like, now with the transfer portal and the rules set up, guys can come in, like Jan, his new crop can come in and contribute right away. You guys couldn't do that. So what was the difference there as far as like having to sit out a whole year? I'm sure you got to know guys, but like, what was that process like, having to sit out a whole year like the rest of the country did at the time?
That was tough, man. Honestly, it was hard because I'm a competitor. And you want to play. Your only games are your practices, and as the season gets going, you get deep in the season. It's not as many live sections anymore. It's a lot of walkthroughs, videos, stuff like that. So yeah, that from that standpoint, it was hard. But for me, man, I benefited from it tremendously because I was able to work on my game. Leaving Utah I was a tweener. And I still played, 3 and 4 when I was at Utah, but when I was in New Mexico State, but I started to play more out on the perimeter my junior and senior year, which is something that I wanted to do. I really worked on my shooting over that time to be able to shoot the ball better. And that was really that year really laid the foundation for me to just become a better basketball player. But man, I wish that I had the opportunity to come in and play right away because I was hungry. And that first, the year I sat out, that team was actually pretty good. Had some talent on there.
Yep.
A couple pieces that weren't there my junior season. And then even like with Elijah, he was healthy that year.
Yep.
And he first team all conference, I believe. So that was, we could have had a healthy Elijah, me healthy, Fred, all of us playing together. We would have had 3 cracks at it instead of just 2.
So I'm sure that there's guys like that would I'm sure there Division I transfers would go to different schools at that time, but that team to me is like a modern team because there was like a bunch of Division I transfers just kind of like grouped together. Do you know of any other, when you played, was that as common as it is now to have like 4 Division I guys on the same roster?
It was a couple schools, that were kind of had bought into this. I think like Cincinnati was doing this a lot. There were a few schools that relied on like transfers and JUCO guys. I thought it was actually, smart for Coach Reggie. I know he had goals for himself. And that's the quickest way to be successful when you have guys who already have that experience coming in. The learning curve, it wasn't as great. We learned terminology. We knew what the physicality was like. We've been through Division I practices, already. All of us, for 2 years. So that's a lot of experience to be bringing in. But it wasn't it wasn't that common at the time. Maybe Fresno had some transfers as well. But
what about your individual experience? Because now it seems like a player, if he wants to transfer for whatever reason, you just have to put your name in maybe alert that school's compliance person to put you in the transfer portal. You don't have to talk to the head coach if you don't even want to. Does that make, like, was your experience, was it, did you leave on good terms? Did that make for some difficult conversations back in your time transferring?
Most definitely. I had to be a man. When I decided that I wanted to transfer, I had to go face the coaches, and it was definitely like being I ain't never had to do this before, but I seen it on TV. It's almost like being in an interrogation room.
Yeah.
I had the head coach sitting in front of me. I had the two assistant coaches sitting next to me and another assistant standing at the door. And I had to go in there and tell them. And when I did, they weren't happy about it. They tried to, get me to stay, talk me into staying. And then once I said I didn't want to stay, they tried to rough me up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a relationship, you know what I'm saying? And when you have breakups, it can be ugly. It is ugly at first, but eventually all those coaches, man, I ended up talking to later on, and I competed against some of them because they ended up moving to like Idaho.
Okay.
So I ended up competing against them, and I made sure they knew. Made sure they remembered me too when we played them. But man, it was cool after that. But I think now with the way that it is, that's I could see some programs being really upset. A guy just put his name in there and they don't know, and next thing you know, they got him on the depth chart, and then next thing you know, they gone to another school. Man, that's crazy.
But that goes to the player empowerment thing that we were talking about, and it seems now like maybe coaches are the ones that have to adjust to the new climate, right?
Most definitely. The player is, I wouldn't do that as I couldn't see myself doing it as a player. Obviously, I grew up in a different time, and we can get into that. But I think that the player should notify the coach and tell them that they're doing this. But the coaches now, they have to, like, it's almost as if they have to like constantly recruit, even the guys that you already have, because I say we probably, I don't know the situations of all the guys that transferred in this year to New Mexico State. I don't want to assume that they were all because at the other school it didn't work out. At some schools, I think now you might have some transfers, some kids that are young that play well at one place, and then they go to a higher level, maybe even, So it's going to be a lot of bouncing around. Like I said, guys, it's almost as if like it's recruiting nonstop for the coaches. But I think everything will work itself out, especially with Coach Jens, who, as hard as he may be as a coach, he's genuine, and he's doing it because he loves the game and he loves the player, and he wants them to be the best that they could be. I couldn't see, him, a coach like this, having a whole lot of guys who wanted to leave, and if some did, Coach Jens probably, he's cool with that too.
Yeah,
so.
Right. How do you, you played maybe like as a professional, as an American overseas, like your teams were probably pretty new every single time you joined a new team. That seems how college teams are now.
Right.
How hard is that to develop that chemistry, like from when they enroll to when the season starts, when it's basically a new team? It seems like the last 2 years have at least been relatively new teams for these guys.
I mean, that's always the hardest thing with coaching is, what is it going to look like? Are you going to have chemistry? And in a lot of that, it comes from the coach, and the coaches can't assume that Last year's team is going to be the same as this year's team. Good coaches like Coach Jans can adjust, and he's going to play based off his personnel and what he has. For the player, I mean, as a young player, it's difficult. When I was young, my first couple years, it was when you go to a new team, it's hard because it almost feels like you're going and you're playing, or you're worried about if you're going to be playing a different role.
Yeah.
But then probably my third year in, I settled down to understand and just know that, like, look, I have to just play my game, regardless of what everybody is doing, compete offensively and defensively, know the schemes, what you're trying to do as a team, offensively and defensively, and do what they brought you in to do. If you're a shooter, shoot. If you're a defender, play D. And with Coach Jans, everybody's going to be a defender. But, if you're supposed to, if you're point guard, run the team, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody just goes in with that attitude to do what they do and to do it for the team, you should be successful. I think that was probably when I came to New Mexico State, man, that worked itself out my first year really well. Everybody just played their game and all the pieces just, fit together.
So is Justin Hawkins the developer of younger talent now? You were doing that. I think you said you're still kind of working with the kids in the gym, but I know you had some local high school players under you here in the off season or whatever. What's it like for those kids? Because now if a transfer can if a coach can grab a Division I transfer and bring him in, right away or whatever, it's kind of like, making it a little harder for the the middle of the top tier high school kids. They're going to get signed regardless, but the kids from Las Cruces might not get a look, their first or second year out of high school. So, like, what do you tell these younger guys?
Man, that is absolutely truth, Jason. I talk to coaches all day. That's what I do, and they all say the same thing. It is tough. It is going to be tough for those young players. Like I said, especially the guys who are not 4-star, 5-star guys.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate to be able to work with Isaiah Carr.
Yep.
Where I work with him often, and
yep.
Isaiah is like one of those kids who was an exception. Everybody was, Isaiah's 6'11". He's talented, he's skilled, his upside. Schools wanted him. But then I got some other kids that are really talented as well, who are kind of right there. My advice to them, I tell them just keep working. I've never seen, I tell them all the time, I tell everybody this, I've never seen anybody who worked their butt off not be rewarded for it.
Okay.
You don't know when it's going to come, how you going to get it, but it always comes every single time. So the route that they take could be a little bit different. Some might have to go JUCO.
Yeah.
I know I have a lot of coaches that are always, when they ask me, when I'm like, man, what you need, they looking for JUCO guys, transfers as well, but the JUCO level. And then looking at their career, like, okay, so if this is what it is now, and I never try to influence anybody to make a decision thinking that they're going to change their mind or something later on. But, you have to start to look at it the same way that the schools look at it. This is 1 year. Even when I was in school, scholarship is 1 year. If I had a win, came to New Mexico State and I played bad, they might say, hey, Hawk, sorry, and now players have to start thinking about it the same way. Go in, they should do this anyway. You should go in thinking this year, this one season, what can you give, how much can you give here? Do it at this school. If you play well and an opportunity presents itself, okay, you take it. Or, really nowadays with all the schools, you can stream everything. Game film is everywhere. Man, you could stay out of school, just play really well, be comfortable, and still get to where it is that you're trying to go. But everything is a process. And that's what I try to get my guys to fall in love with is the process of the game. You know, I'm taking the kids to gyms that they ain't never been in and telling them, hey, go out here and make a name for yourself. That's really all that it is. Go out here, do your best, make a name for yourself, and, you know, see what happens.